All right, folks, picture this. The Supreme Court drops a bombshell and overturns Roe v. Wade, sending the pro-life movement into what can only be described as a bit of an identity crisis. Or, as Ryan Anderson from the Ethics and Public Policy Center puts it, we are all incrementalists now. Which, let's be honest, sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi flick where everyone wears gray and talks about strategic patience. But hey, here we are. Now, when Anderson says all, he might be exaggerating a tad. I mean, not everyone is signing up for the incrementalist fan club, but he's onto something. The pro-life movement has been taking some serious L's lately. We're talking losing big in red state referendums, slipping in public polls, and watching some crucial pro-life language vanish faster than a politician's promise during election season. Now, here's the kicker. No one can agree on what this incrementalism even means. It's like everyone showed up to the same party, but forgot to check the dress code. On one side, you've got the just go with it crowd saying, hey, maybe we should roll with Trump's sudden pro-choice vibes because, bigger fish to fry with the Democrats. And on the flip side, you've got the anything but Trump team, led by my colleague David French, who thinks we should exorcise Trump's spirit from the movement of faster than a horror movie sequel. And if you're wondering, where do I sign up to watch this debate? Good news. You can catch me and David French going at it in our latest Matter of Opinion podcast episode. Spoiler alert. I may have expressed some slight skepticism that the pro-life cause would thrive under a Harris-Walz administration. I mean, call me crazy, but I just don't see Kamala Harris handing out pro-life merit badges anytime soon. But listen, disagreeing with French about what would happen if Harris wins doesn't magically solve the pro-life Rubik's Cube. Should pro-lifers fight tooth and nail to make sure Trump's let's make a deal strategy doesn't become the standard? That's what Ryan Anderson argues in First Things. Or do we, as Matthew Lee Anderson suggests over at the Dispatch, acknowledge that Trump's leave it to the states stance is the kind of politically palatable compromise we should have jumped on ages ago? Decisions. Then there's Marvin Olasky, who chimes in with a hot take. Maybe pro-lifers should try being a bit more understanding in those tough cases. Dial down the fire and brimstone and dial up the social and economic policies that make it easier to choose life. Meanwhile, Bethel McGrew is over here like, nah, keep the faith, don't put your trust in the princes of the Republican Party, but stick to your moral guns. Thou shalt not kill, period. Clearly, we've got a lot of cooks in this kitchen, and none of them are following the same recipe. And here's a fun twist. Recognizing that there's no imaginable pro-life majority without a huge shift in how Americans think about sex, marriage, and religion. Some folks are saying, hey, maybe we should just go all in and be a pro-marriage or even pro-chastity movement. Like, forget about persuading people about the humanity of the unborn. Let's just change how they, live their entire sexual lives. Because that's going to be an easy sell, right? Meanwhile, Michael Brendan Dougherty suggests maybe we should just sit tight and wait for society to hit rock bottom and come crawling back for renewal and new life. No biggie, just a complete cultural reset. So we've got this smorgasbord of ideas, and no one's really agreeing on the main course. Some are like, let's make this about pro-marriage, pro-chastity, pro-everything. Others are thinking, maybe we just need to wait for society to implode on itself and come back begging for some moral structure. Sure, that sounds like a solid no-fail plan, right? Meanwhile, Ryan Anderson jumps back in to say, guys, our primary task isn't just convincing people that unborn lives matter. Nope, we've got to change how people, do life itself. Casual, right? Michael Brendan Dougherty adds a little Zen wisdom to the mix, suggesting we all just be patient. As in, wait around while society keeps drifting further into this weird post-decency zone. Eventually, he suggests, people might just start searching through the rubble of modern culture, desperate for something that actually resembles meaning and purpose. Because who doesn't love waiting for an existential crisis to get things moving? But let's not get too comfortable with our crystal balls predicting the future. For now, the only thing clear is how murky the pro-life political situation has become. The end of Roe didn't exactly come with a how to win public opinion manual. Instead, it left the movement defending a ton of policy ground it didn't necessarily earn in the court of public opinion. Talk about having your work cut out for you. All right, here's where it gets interesting. Right now, there are over a dozen states where pro-life laws are actually on the books, plus another 8, with some pretty serious restrictions. Sounds like a solid win, right? But hold on, compare this to the pro-pot movement. They've managed to legalize recreational cannabis use in 24 states in DC, and they didn't even have to fight half as hard. It's like a tale of two movements. One gets to chill with widespread public support, while the other is busy defending turf that didn't quite win in the popularity contest. So, why does it feel like the pro-life side is playing defense on its own home turf? Simple. The movement succeeded in overturning Roe, a huge victory, no doubt. But it didn't quite seal the deal with the American public. Turns out, getting people to vote for something is a bit more complicated than courtroom drama. Who knew, right? So now, both the high-level strategies, like what the GOP platform should say, or if a national ban on late-term abortions is the way to go, and the grassroots cultural approaches are stuck with the same homework assignment. Figure out how to hold on to this ground without losing more hearts and minds. Here's the thing. The movement's current situation might actually make a case for a more national strategy. Think about it. If there was an alternate reality where a Trump-Vance ticket could get its act together, you'd have a combo of Trump's abortion federalism, which is a fancy way of saying, we'll leave it to the states, and Vance's support for generous family policy. Sounds like a match made in political heaven, right? Add in some federal dollars to help states support expecting mothers and reduce abortion rates, and you've got yourself a plan, or at least the start of one. So let's talk strategy. Should the GOP platform have a national late-term abortion ban? Should the next Republican president support one? These are the big questions floating around the pro-life water cooler. But here's the kicker. Both the high-level national strategies and the grassroots efforts need to focus on one thing: keeping hold of the political ground that, let's be honest, they didn't exactly win with a landslide of public opinion. It's like trying to hold on to the TV remote in a room full of siblings. Tricky, to say the least. Picture this. In some parallel universe, there's a Trump-Vance ticket that isn't busy bickering, but is instead launching a united national strategy. Imagine Trump pushing his leave it to the states approach, while Vance is over here championing a robust pro-family policy. Maybe something like a bigger child tax credit, or more federal funding for state programs that support expecting moms. Hey, it's not the most radical idea ever. Unless, of course, you're talking about any actual reality where politicians work together seamlessly. Now, here in the real world, some pro-life states are already taking baby steps, pun intended, towards this kind of support. Since Roe's fall, every state with laws protecting life in the womb has passed measures to expand support for pregnant women, new moms, and their babies. But, spoiler alert, these steps have been a bit underwhelming. They haven't quite matched up to the grand ask of restricting abortion. It's like offering someone a granola bar after telling them they can't eat cake anymore. A nice gesture, but not exactly the same thing. So why haven't these pro-life initiatives really hit the mark? Well, for starters, we've got the classic Republican resistance to social spending. You know, the same crowd that thinks funding anything that doesn't involve tax cuts or tanks is somehow a communist plot. Plus, many of these pro-life states are not exactly swimming in cash. They're among the poorer states in America. So dreaming up a utopian pro-life vision on a shoestring budget, yeah, not easy. What's the solution then? Maybe national pro-lifers should shift gears and start thinking about how to put state-level pro-life policies on a more sustainable footing. Imagine proving to the world that the abortion restrictions in places like Texas, Arkansas, or Louisiana actually work, and not just on paper. Meanwhile, on the national front, the goal should be to present the pro-life case as something aspirational. But here's the catch. Right now, it feels like they're mostly just trying to hold on to ground they didn't quite win. Now, let's talk about our old friend Donald Trump. He gets the whole playing defense part. He's been doing it his entire life, after all. But making an aspirational case? Yeah, that's not exactly his brand. And unless J.D. Vance somehow becomes his new bestie and convinces him otherwise, I wouldn't hold my breath on a Trump administration suddenly prioritizing family policies over, say, building walls or cutting taxes for the umpteenth time. So, what's the bottom line for the pro-life movement looking to survive in this post-Dobbs world? Maybe it's time to pick one clear goal and run with it. Make it as easy as possible financially, legally, and socially for pro-life states to stick to their guns in a mostly pro-choice country. Keep it simple, keep it focused. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that juggling a dozen different strategies rarely ends well, especially in politics.